Chapter 26. A Mistake. The blood rushed from Sky's face as Dylan looked at her and repeated his words, his voice becoming more resolute as he spoke. "I'm gonna kill them. Those men touch you, the boy, like that? They die." Sky studied Dylan's clenched jaw, the vein at his temple and his whitened knuckles wrapped around the steering wheel. He was barely controlling himself. She expected anger, but this was way more rage than he had displayed before. As the jolt of Dylan's words wore away, Sky became just as determined to stop him as he was to go. Sky stepped up on the running board of the truck. "No, no. Look at me, look at Jesse. We are fine. There will be no killing today. You gonna let them get away with treating you like that?" Dylan practically roared as he waved toward her. Clearly, there was no doubt in Dylan's mind that he and Wade needed to handle this. "There ain't no police here, maybe even no law. If we don't take care of this, no one will, and these men, they'll do it again. There is no mistaking that." But Sky wouldn't be swayed. No one got away with anything. One guy won't ever walk the same. The other, well, he hit hard. He may never get up. The third guy isn't going to do anything without their help. Sky half explained and half pleaded her case. Dylan gave one quick shake of his head before settling himself further down into his seat and reaching for the ignition. "I'm killing them." "No." Sky's voice was shrill as she grabbed his arm. "You think you can stop me?" He shook himself from her grasp. Sky bit the inside of her cheek. She needed to stay calm. One of them had to use some self-control, and it wasn't likely to be Dylan. Sky took a deep breath. "I know I can't stop you, Dylan. If you want to kill people, you will do it. But it isn't like hunting. It's not the same, killing animals and killing people. I know what it's like." Dylan's gaze flashed from Sky to the front windshield and stayed there. His jaw tightened. Sky stilled for a moment. She hadn't expected that. "Okay, then, I'm asking you not to go. I can't have another death on me. I can't live with that. It ain't on you, it'll be on me." Dylan's scorching anger cooled for a second as he gazed at Sky. He twisted the steering wheel until it protested, and his voice lowered from a roar to a growl. "You gonna let them rape and murder all up and down this road? There ain't no way to stop guys like them but kill them. What else are you gonna do? We aren't certain they have been or will do this again. But I hear you, I really do, but I can't kill people like that. This is a longer discussion, for another day, when we are not emotional." Sky reached out and laid her hand gently on his upper arm. "Please, Dylan." Sky turned to search for his brother. "Wade?" Wade leaned against the long side of the truck during the conversation and now turned away from her. He jerked a finger toward Dylan. "Him. 100%. Those men'll be gearing up for another round as soon as they're walkin'." Wade raised his hands in the air. "But hey, I'm not gettin' in the middle of this argument. I'm not the one romancing the girl. But if she's all worried about this, maybe just rough them up a bit." Dylan looked from Wade to the front window of his truck for a moment before shaking his head and heaving a sigh. "All right, we'll go and just make them wish they hadn't touched you. Make them not want to touch anyone ever again." He started the ignition. Wade jogged over to the passenger side. Sky reached over Dylan and turned the truck off. If Dylan went, he wouldn't stop at a beating, not in this mood. Dylan closed his eyes, refusing to look at her. Sky held her ground. "No. It was my fight, and I took care of it the way I wanted. I could have killed or maimed them. I didn't. It's done. I want to go home." Sky lightly pushed on Dylan's shoulder so he would seek her face. "Please, just take me home. Sky and Dylan's eyes locked, and she watched Dylan's anger melt away when she called his house home. When Sky saw his demeanor change, she lowered her gaze. But Dylan wasn't done. He brought a hand to her jaw and waited for her to look at him again. "You're making a mistake. The only reason I'm listening to you is because I can't take how you'll feel when it's done. But it will be done at some point. Those men, they're gonna die. Leaving them here, it's a mistake." Tears flooded Sky's eyes. "Perhaps. But as we know, it isn't the first one, and I doubt it will be the last I will make." Dylan sighed. "It burns me to let them go. This shouldn't be ending in a question." She raised her hand and laid it on top of his. "Thank you." Sky took advantage of Dylan's hesitation, afraid he would change his mind, and arranged the cars. "Wade, do you want to take my car and let Jesse drive some? He needs more practice." Then she hopped into the truck with Dylan. Dylan sat for a moment, one arm over the steering wheel as he studied Sky. "You're too soft-hearted, and it's gonna be the end of you." Sky gazed at Dylan but didn't answer. Perhaps he was right, and she was making a grave error. Sky pressed her lips together. If she acknowledged that, he'd see it as permission to go after the men, so she kept silent. Sky chewed the inside of her lip. If she found out those men hurt other people when Dylan and Wade wanted to stop them right here, she would never forgive herself for that either. This was just one of the many moral dilemmas ahead if the world never righted itself again. But she wasn't ready to be someone's jury, judge, and executioner. Not today. Even if someone else was doing the actual execution. She couldn't help it, that was the way she felt. Without a doubt, though, this would be something that would be argued out another day. It was unavoidable.
Talking Man watched as Sky banged the door of Dylan's truck shut and both vehicles drove south. He made a note of that for when he and the boys came back later. Not a mental note, he said the words out loud. South. And she's got muscle too. Calvin had always been a talker, with others or alone. He claimed to be one of the best salesmen on the East Coast because of it, though his wallet wouldn't have said the same thing. Calvin and his buddies, Tony and Pete, had wreaked havoc on the sick and the healthy alike along this stretch of road. From the sick, they took whatever supplies they could, whether that meant their deaths or not. From the healthy, they took everything else. Their wicked spree left many starving, broken, and dead. But today a woman and a child brought their streak of fun to an end. That outraged Calvin. How dare she? How dare that woman think she and that boy have any say in the matter? This is a new world, and we decide the rules. Before the AG flew, Calvin's many silent imaginings had been just that. He'd kept them to himself and a handful of like-minded people, typing the words he could never utter out loud in a private internet chat room. As he'd sat in that darkened corner of his living room, he'd never dreamed he could ever act on them. But how things had changed. Now he was a king, in the world, it was his for the taking. Take it he would. No woman would get in his way. He would make sure she knew her place in the reboot of this world. He fumed as he got back in the car he used to follow her. He'd say he'd been fortunate to find a car that had the keys in it so quickly, but he didn't see it that way. To Calvin, it was more as if it was meant to be. She didn't even suspect I was on her tail. He laughed as he turned the car around. His mind was already surging with how he would punish a woman like her. Now, he needed to go scrape his friends off the pavement. Then they would make a plan.